Welcome back, everyone. We have an update from Immuron Limited, which trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol IMRN. It's a biopharmaceutical company focused on developing and commercializing orally delivered targeted polyclonal antibodies for the treatment of infectious diseases. Please welcome its CEO, Steve Lydeamore. Nice to see you, Steve. What's your update today?
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and good afternoon. Let me just quickly click through the safe harbor statement. Look, I have an interesting update for you since the last time I presented. So we just recently announced a US Department of Defense Research Award for the NMRC, that's the Naval Medical Research Command, and the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research to develop an enhanced formulation of Travelan. So that's great news. It means that not only are we going to move from phase 2. Recall that we reported top-line results on our phase 2 study back on March 7th with a plan to move into phase 3 next year. We also have a plan for the second version of Travelan, an enhanced military-grade version after that, so that's great news. We also have that CAMP-ETEC phase 2 trial. I reported that we had finished that trial, and we have an adjudication date tomorrow, actually, on the 23rd of August. And so after that, they'll unblind the study and do the statistics. So I'm anticipating that we'll report top-line results on that shortly thereafter. So we have another exciting milestone coming up. Not new news, but we just closed out our financial year, and I'm working with the auditors at the moment to do the preliminary financial results. But we had an exciting year where we had almost $5 million in sales, up some 174% on the prior year. So for those of you that are not familiar with Immuron, we're obviously a small biotech company with a market cap of a bit over 20 million Australian. We had cash in the bank at December of about 15 million. We'll report a new number in our preliminary financials before the end of August, but sufficient to say we have plenty of cash. We have a product on the market generating revenue and growing at a good rate. We also have 3 therapeutic products, so that's IMM124E, which is the active drug substance in Travelan, as well as CAMP-ETEC, the therapeutic that's reading out phase 2 in September. And we also have IMM529, which we filed pre-IND on the 1st of July. So that program as well, we plan to go into phase 2 next calendar year. We have a scheduled meeting with the FDA to have a pre-IND meeting in September. So that one's moving forward as well. So quickly click through the slides here. So this is the sales graph. Some of you may have seen this before, but that $4.9 million in sales is mostly coming from Australia. So $3.7 million, which was up more than 200% on the prior year. And we just started our new financial year in July, and our sales are still going strong. We're planning for strong growth in USA and Canada this year and North America. And that's important because they're a much larger population market. And we did achieve record sales in the US last year of $1.1 million, up some 74%. So things are moving in the right direction there. Just a reminder for everybody, this is a $1 billion market opportunity. Travelers' diarrhea alone is a large market, and we're really just scratching the surface. You can see that if we achieve 15% penetration into that market in the US alone, that's worth $83 million per annum. Similarly, in Europe, that's $50 million per annum. And that Clostridioides difficile product, IMM529, that I just mentioned, that's a much larger market opportunity. It's a $1.7 billion market. Admittedly, at the moment, that's mostly vancomycin and phytomoxicin antibiotics, which ironically are both used for treating CDI as well as a lot of people actually get it from having antibiotics. So it's a big problem. It requires a non-antibiotic therapy, which our IMM529 is one of those. Our technology is quite unique. For those that are not familiar, we develop animal vaccines which are targeted for specific pathogens. And in the case of Travelan, that's some 13 different types of enterotoxigenic E. coli. IMM529 is for Clostridioides, and CAMP-ETEC is Campylobacter and ETEC. We immunize a pregnant cow and collect the colostrum, which contains polyclonal antibodies specific for those targeted pathogens. And we produce a powder, much like an infant milk formula, and turn that into a tablet. Having trouble moving to the next slide for some reason. Oh, here we go. Sometimes pictures are better than words, and I don't have a lot of time, but just quickly down the bottom, this is without Travelan. You can see the bacteria burrowing into the gut wall and causing damage, and on the right, with Travelan, it's almost ready to be cleared from the system, having the toxins neutralized at their source. Just a reminder on the US Department of Defense collaboration, we have 4 clinical programs, 3 of which are funded by US DoD funding, so including the IMM 124E phase 2 that just read out in March, and we're talking to the Department of Defense with a hope that they'll continue to support us as we move into phase 3. And the 2 programs down the bottom there, CAMP-ETEC that I just mentioned, that's reading top-line phase 2 results in September, conducted by the Naval Medical Research Command at the Johns Hopkins University. And another Travelan study, phase 4 study, large study in 866 active US and UK military personnel. That's more than 77% recruited, planned to complete recruitment by the end of the calendar year with a readout, top-line readout of that trial in the first quarter of next calendar year. Our IMM 529, it's a triple mechanism of action targeting not only toxin B, which causes C. difficile, but C. difficile is a spore-forming bacterium, and our product also targets the spores and vegetative cells. And you can see down the bottom there, efficacy results in preclinical studies, statistically significant prevention, primary disease, protection of disease recurrence, and treatment of primary disease. We did report recently continued analysis of the phase 2 results, and the update here is that we found that looking at the post-5-day period post-challenge, we achieved a 43.8% reduction in diarrhea of any severity, which was approaching statistical significance with a p-value of 0.066. And we did achieve statistical significance in the cumulative adverse events in the Travelan group being statistically lower, 58, versus the placebo group, 109. This provides further excellent safety and tolerability profile for Travelan, as we discussed with the FDA, our plans to move into phase 3. And just in closing here, we have our plan for IMM 124E, phase 3 strategy, clinical study report in September, end of phase 2 meeting with the FDA, followed by another probably with the FDA to discuss phase 3 clinical protocol. We plan to get into the clinic to conduct phase 3 trials in the second half of next calendar year. Each trial would take roughly 2 years of duration, followed by FDA review and approval process. And I might just close there to leave time for any questions that anybody may have.
All right, Steve. Yes, you just answered a question from Quentin asking about an estimate for phase 3. If you have anything else you want to say about phase 3?
Yeah, so we did have, when we filed pre-IND with the FDA, we did have written correspondence. So on that slide, and I'll just go back to it, it shows feedback that we had back at that time. So we're anticipating that there'll be a requirement for 2 phase 3 trials of approximately 600 patients in each study. The trial design will be similar to that trial I mentioned before that the Uniformed Services University is conducting. So it'll be in subjects traveling to high-risk regions, and that's the reason why you need a large number of subjects as compared to the phase 2 study, which was done in only 60. Estimated duration of 2 years. We're not sure of the cost yet because it depends on the protocol that the FDA comes up with. But we do know that it will take roughly 2 years, and we have experience with that USU study about that. So we're quite confident about the timing, just not quite sure what the final clinical protocol is, but we'll be having those meetings with the FDA soon, and we'll be able to inform investors and shareholders what that looks like.
Great. And Moshe Burton asks, does your cash flow now make it less likely to need to raise funds in the market?
Oh, look, it depends on what the FDA asks in terms of subject numbers for the trial and requirements. It also depends on whether the Department of Defence or other grant funding is available. So we do have quite a bit of cash, but that other program I mentioned, we're also planning to take that into phase 2. That's the IMM 529 for clostridioides. That's the one program that's not funded by US Department of Defence funding, and there may be a need if we are unable to secure other non-dilutive funding to raise some capital prior to initiating that in the second half of next calendar year.
And Damari asks, did you release guidance for fiscal year 2025?
In terms of forward-looking sales and financial projections, no, we haven't. We don't do that as a company.
And last question from a viewer: has the company approached humanitarian organizations to help with your technology, like Red Cross and whatnot?
Not Red Cross and whatnot, but we have been reaching out to groups that have interest in certain pathogens. So, for example, the Clostridioides difficile program, we are in contact with the Peggy Lillis Foundation, who has quite graciously assisted us and with understanding the requirements of patients, and we anticipate they'll also assist us in recruitment for that particular trial. With the Travelan IMM 124E phase 3 trial, we do have experience already with the military because they're conducting a large trial, so similar to the phase 3 requirement in 866 subjects. So we'll probably tap into that if we can as well, at least for one of those phase 3 trials. Military subjects. So we're well advanced on looking at options to recruit patients for both studies.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Steve, for this update, and we look forward to following you along again real soon.
Very good. Thanks for your time again, everybody.
All right, everyone, we'll be right back.